So I'm loading up some 45 Colt today, brand new unused Winchester brass. I'm going to load it with 250 grain Hornady XTP with 26 grains of H100. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this new brass, put it in my Rock Chucker Supreme, and resize each piece of brass. And then I'll come back and I'll flare each piece of brass, and then I'll prime each piece of brass, and then I'll load bullets into each piece. Oh, correction, then I'll load powder, and then I'll seat the bullets in each piece of brass. So that's where we start. These will be beast mode rounds when I'm done, and I'll be using them in a Ruger 45 Long Colt Blackhawk. All right, so I've got all of these cases here. I've got them sized. I always size new cases. And now you have to put a flare on the end of the bullet here, because otherwise this bullet, you can't seat it in there. And then when you try to put the bullet in the seater, it crushes down on the side. And so you run it through this die right here, and it just kind of flutes out the top a little bit, and then the bullet will sit in there, and that way when you use it on the bullet seater, it doesn't put wrinkles and bends in your brass. It allows you to seat the bullet, and then you have to come back after you seat them all and crimp the bullet into the brass. So we'll go over that next. So first we did a full size resize. Then we put the little flare on the tip. This is a Hornady XTP 250 grain 45 Colt bullet. And that way it sits in there enough for you to push it down in the brass without messing up the brass itself. So we're gonna flare all these, and then we'll come back and prime, powder, seat, bullets, and crimp. Okay. Now that we have our brass sized and flared, the next step is to prime. So there's a lot of discussions out there about which primer. I'm using Magnum, large pistol Magnum primers, because I'm using Hodgson H110 powder, which from my research is very slow burning and needs a Magnum primer to fully ignite it, but it's for fast velocity on heavy bullets. I have tried so many primer tools that it's crazy, but I think this cheap handheld primer tool is as good or better than all of them. Yeah, it's slower, but I'm old, so slow is okay. So you see that little lip right there, that little hole? You just take your primer, you drop it in there like so. You take your cartridge, you put it in the shell holder, and you squeeze it, bada bing. You got yourself a prime round. A lot of people are like, I don't like touching primers. If you're worried about getting dirt on your primer, I'm not. But if you are, just wear some nitrile gloves and have at it. All right, I got my powder machine and trickler here calibrated. When you switch between powder sizes on this machine, you have to calibrate it, and sometimes it can be a pain. So I'm using Hodgson H110 for these 45 Colt hand loads with the 250 grain Hornady XTP. And when you use H110, it's a very narrow set of grains. So the min's 25.7, the max is 26.5 according to the Hodgson website. So I'm going to set it on 26. So I got it set on 26 grains here. You can see it dispensing. And this machine is very accurate. And it'll flash green when you get the right powder. So that's close enough. So then I'm going to take this and I'm going to pour it into the case. That's my whiskey flask funnel that on a drink anymore, so I'm not using it, but it works great for this. That fine powder, I don't have to worry about it. And I just bring it back over there and repeat the process 100 times. Okay, so we got our 100 charge cases now. We got our bullets. We got our bullet seeder in there. We got our micrometer. So now that we have the cases sized, flared, primed, and charged, the last two steps are going to be seating the bullets and putting a crimp on it. So bullet seating is critical, especially for pistols and revolvers. So the case overall length for 45 Colt is 1.6 inches. So when you put this in, this bullet seeder, you screw it in until it touches the shell holder. Then you back it out 3 times. And then this piece on top is how you adjust the bullet height. So I normally bring it almost all the way out so that I can incrementally tune it in until I get to that 1.6 inches. And then I can just leave it there and load every one of these bullets without having to readjust it. So micrometer is critical. And people are like, what do you spend the money on? And for me, I think the scale and powder trickler is critical, especially when you're dealing with stuff like H110, where it's a 25.7 to 26.5, less than 1 grain between min and max, right? You really have to have a scale that can get down to that kind of measurement. And you have to have a good micrometer for a bunch of different reasons. Today, we're just using it for case overall length. So stick my case in here. Kind of awkward, I'm trying to hold my phone. Now, on the Annealing Made Perfect website, I see them using a graphite, and I see some other people doing it. And I've had good luck with it for my rifle cartridge loader. So you set it on there, you run it up, come back down. You see it just got a little bit of a seat on it. So I'm just going to turn it in a little bit at a time and let it, that felt like you got some. And at some point, I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to go to my micrometer here. And I'm going to say, all right, well, what is the case overall length? So let me zero this thing out because I use it on my comparator a lot. That's going to be hard for me to show you that. Let me adjust my camera here. I don't know if you can see this or not, but zero it out. I measure the bullet distance. Make sure it's lined up good. It's easy with these flat top bullets. And I'm at 1.77. So still have to bring it down. So I just put it back in there. And I just tweak, bring it in, measure. Tweak, bring it in, measure until I get to that 1.6 inches exactly. All right, now that I have adjusted my bullet seating die, now it's just a matter of loading bullets. Put it on there, got just enough flare. Ready to go. Repeat until you're done and it's time to crimp. Okay, we're nearing the end, my friends. We've got all of our 45 Colt cases sized, flared, primed, charged, and now we have bullets seated in them. And because we had to flare this in order for the bullet to be able to get seated, now we have to go back and put what's called a crimp on this bullet. And because we're using H110, which is for hot magnum loads, and we're going to have to put a heavy crimp on this. So on my lead die, I screw it in, and I know I've got L.E. Wilson dies and Redding small base dies, and I got a bunch of Lee dies. So you can see, yeah, I've got some different die sets there. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, my wife had these when we got married, these lead die sets. And they work excellent. And they're way cheaper than any of those other die sets. And for pistol, I only use lead. So if you're just getting into reloading and you don't want to spend a ton of cash, don't be afraid to use a lead die. I love them. I have a $28 Lee swaging die. And by the time I finish processing this Lake City brass, it will have paid for its $28 self 1,000 times over. So now I put my cartridge in, I bring it up, and then I adjust this until I feel it touch the top of the die. And I usually use a pencil on these dies just so I can see exactly where it is when it comes off. And then I pull it out, and for one heavy crimp, I turn it one time in, and then I bring that bad boy back up. I can feel it crimp. I pull it out. You can see where the top of that bullet is kind of turned in. And you do that 100 times, and you are 100% complete with your 145 Colt bullets.